Well, hello everyone. Welcome to part 3 of the Apache Collective build series. I would like to start this video apologizing for the previous one, part 2. It was kind of an improvised one, and I found out that I was not fully prepared for what I wanted to achieve at that video, and ended up being too long of a video for very little advance. So I apologize for that. I hope I learned the lesson and I'm a little bit more ready for today. We are gonna hopefully advance a little bit more, and we're still not going to be finishing it because there's still a lot of important things to do, but I would expect to at least have the mission grip finished and put together, and we will probably have all the buttons and switches attached to the to the flight grip, and we'll see. We'll see how far can we advance. I don't want to do these videos too long, so let's get into it. Since we are probably going to be wiring already today some of the buttons to the boards, I feel I need to explain you a little bit of how buttons work. This is not intended to be a tutorial on how electronics work, how to wire buttons and all that, but since we are doing a build that is going to be connected to a microcontroller, I feel I do need to explain the very, very basics of what we are going to be doing here, and how buttons work, how buttons are going to be plugged in a very, very simple way and very quick way. So the most simple, and basically a button, what it is an interrupt of a circuit. So let's say we have a wire through which there's a current flowing. I hope you can see this. And essentially what a button is cutting this flow of current, right? Like this. And then when you push the button, you allow current through again. And there's some buttons that work the other way around. Some buttons are normally allowing current, and when you push them, it cuts the flow. It really doesn't matter. So where does this current flow from and to? This is the microcontroller, essentially. What we are going to be using for this project is an Arduino Pro Micro, as we spoke. Hi, Grabomon, how are you doing? I just started, first one in the stream. Anyway, I was explaining. So we are going to be plugging this button to a microcontroller, and basically there are two leads. So if you take this button as an example, this is the simplest button you can find. It only has two leads. This is what it's called a SP-ST button, because it's a single pole, single throw, meaning that there is only one way the current goes, and you only activate it once with this push button. So basically what we will be doing is connecting this to one point, this end to one point of the microcontroller, and this one to another point. And what points are those? Hello, Cresp. How are you doing? So basically what we will be doing, the way Arduino works, is essentially you have several input pins. In this case, the Arduino Pro Micro, I have it here. I believe it has a total of 18 points, if I'm not wrong, of which 4 of them are analogs and the rest are digitals. And for buttons and switches, that's what we need, digital pins. So let's imagine we want to connect this to pin 4, and that's what's going to tell us that this button has been pressed. So we will be looking at pin 4, and when we see a change in the state of that pin, it means that the button has been pressed. And how do we know that a state has changed in that pin? By allowing current through or not. So the Arduino is going to be monitoring that pin, and basically, what is a state? A state means there is voltage in that pin or there is not. And there's two ways you can actually do that. So let's say you have pin 4 in this side. Let me just put this one, pin 4. It doesn't really matter, but let's say that there's pin 4 in this side. And one of the options is that you connect the other end of the button. So this would be, for instance, pin 4, and this other side would be ground. And that is one of the options you can do. So you connect this end to ground and tell Arduino to have a voltage of 5 volts in this pin always, right? And whenever Arduino is reading 5 volts in pin 4, that means that the button is open. Because we are doing it in a way that when we push this button, what we do is basically closing this contact. Ground is going to be directly connecting to pin 4, and that will make the pin 4 to go to drop that voltage and go to ground. And that's what a change of state is. Another way of doing it would be the other way around. Instead of connecting this pin to ground, it would be connecting it to VCC and tell pin 4 to stay at 0 volt. Because you can set pins, input pins, to stay either, what in Arduino language it's called high or low. It means that you can tell pin 4 to be at 0 volts or all of them, right, obviously. You can tell them to be at 5 volts. So if it's at 5 volts and you connect that pin directly to ground, it will get pulled down. And if you connect the other way to the other lead to VCC and tell pin 4 to be at 0 volts, it will usually be at 0 volts. And then when you connect it to VCC to 5 volts, it will change its state and it will be high, right? And that's how we identify if a button is being pressed or not, when it changes its normal state. Every single button works the same, and it just has different variations of it. So if we take this one, for instance, although this is a 6x6 tactile button, let me put the magnifying glass. And hold on, well, too much light. Probably you can see it. Let me just put it against the mat. Let me see. See, this button here has 4 leads, four legs. And you could say, hi folks, how are you doing? Pull-up resistors? Yeah, exactly. Well, that's a little bit more advanced. I don't want to go too deep into that. We are going to be using an input pull-up. That basically means that the pin is going to be normally at 5 volts, and what we are going to do is connecting the other lead of the other leg of the button to ground. So this top option, we are going to be using this one, and that is what it's called an input pull-up, because the pin is going to be always high, except the moment that we press it, that it's going to be low. Usually all Arduinos have internal pull-up resistors normally. So I was explaining this button seems a little bit different than this one, because this one has 2 legs and this one has 4, but actually it's exactly the same. You have to imagine that this leg here, it's actually, well, not imagine, it is a single piece of metal going through the button on the inside, and it's basically the same piece of metal than this one here. So this is essentially the same, and if I was to draw this in paper, you can imagine the same. So if these legs are like this, let me just draw it. I just explained to you that these legs are connected, so these are the legs. And what you do when you push the button is basically this. So it's exactly the same. It just has 2 more legs, but they are connected together. So it's the same as just having 2 legs exactly like this one. Now, if we go check a button like these ones, these two, for instance, this is actually a latching switch on one side, meaning that it will stay in that side, and momentary in the other. So this way it latches, and then you have to put it in the middle again, if you want. And then the other way, it's momentary. The moment I release, it goes back to its position, center position, right? We're going to be using that for the lights in the collective. This one is a limit switch. It's basically the same one you will find in a 3D printer for stops, end stops. And basically, they are the same, and you can see there are 3 legs on this. This side of the button, which for a two-leg button, it doesn't matter which one it is. There's no polarity of anything. But this side of the button, I like to call it common, and actually it's not only my thing. I think it's general denomination in buttons. But the side that is going to be connected either to ground or VCC, it's called common. And why it matters? It matters only when there's more than 2 switches in one. So this is exactly the same as this, but it has 2 positions. So it would be like having 2 buttons, right? 1 button to one side, 1 button to the other. And there are only 3 pins because one of them is common. So imagine, I just told you this one is like this two. Imagine these 2 legs were touching together, right? This would be the common one connected to ground in our case. The other leg would be connected to, let's say, pin 4 of this one. And then of this one, the other leg would be connected to pin 5. If we touch both of them at the same time, current would flow from the common pins, which are, remember, touching together, and it would go both ways. That would mean that the Arduino would detect both buttons being pressed together. Obviously, that's what we want it to do. If we push both buttons at once, we want it to detect. The difference with this one is that you cannot push both buttons at once. So you have to imagine this is the center pin is the common one. Imagine if you just used half of it, this would be just 1 button, right? And then current would go from and if you were to use only one side of the switch, it wouldn't matter which one you would connect to ground or VCC. It doesn't matter which one is the common. But since we are using both of them, the center needs to be the common one. And this, you would drive it something. I'm not sure if this is the actual symbol for this kind of switches, but I like to draw it like this. So imagine something like this, right? This is the common, which we said we were going to be using ground in our case. And this would be pin 5 and pin 4 in the Arduino, correct? And then if you switch to one side, basically you are closing one of the sides, so the current would flow this way. If we switch the other side, then we would be closing this one. And as you can see, if this is a solid piece, you cannot have both ends connecting together. This is how basically this works. And this is essentially the same. And actually, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but this switch has, let me see if I can focus it a little bit, but it has some markings, and I don't think you will see it in the camera, but let me draw it for you here. So this is like this. There's 3 pins, and then there's this. This is the actuator of the button, going like that. So when you press the button, it clicks. And first leg, you cannot see it, but let me tell you, it says there's a C, there's an NO in the middle one, and an NC in the one to the right. Okay, what does this mean? Well, C is common. This is what I was telling you before. You could plug this to ground or VCC. So in our project, it will be ground. And NONC means normally open or normally closed. What does that mean? So as you can see here, there is only one position. Because there's only one, there's a tiny little red, let me see if you can see it, I can show you, tiny little red button inside, and when you press the metal piece, that button pushes, right? So the way this is connected is actually one button. Imagine something like this, right? But imagine that it had some other leg coming out of it, and when you push, so we said that with this, let me take this out. With this, when you push, you are connecting these two pins together, right? And then current flows through this one. When you release, it's just opening. It's not doing anything, right? So imagine there was another leg that was connecting common with that leg when it was not pressed, when it was released, and when you push, it connects common with the other leg. So basically, the symbol for this type of switches is this. So you have the same, a lead coming from ground, GND. We have a switch, right? So this is this would be in this state. So in this state with nothing pressing, it would be normally open because at this moment is open. So this would be the NO lead. But imagine there was another one coming out of here, and this is normally closed. And when you push this metal piece, what it does is changes this. And at the moment you actively push, it goes and connects to normally open. So in this case, you could have two pins and bind two inputs to the same button, one single button, and just have a map. For instance, let's say this is going to be used, by the way, let me show you. This is going to be used for the jettison cover switch, this one here, right? And if we were to connect the three pins, we could set, let's say, for instance, button number 10 to open the jettison cover, which is here. So this one goes here, and it has a lip here that when you open it, presses the button, right? Let me show you how it looks like. So when you open, the lip in the button presses the limit switch, right? So you could have the three legs of this button connected and say button 1 is open and button 2 is closed. But we actually don't need that for DCS because I will show you whenever we get into the software part. But you can set in DCS a button, the same button for open and close. You just need to configure it differently. So in our project, we will only connect the common, obviously, to ground, and the normally open. We could connect either of the two, it doesn't matter. But it's easier to work with the normally open. So we will be connecting the left and the center pins. And then we have this type of switches, for instance. These are essentially the same as this. This is a three pin, three position, sorry, because you have left, center, and right, three position. But essentially, it's basically as like two buttons. This one here is not only like 4 buttons; it's literally 4 buttons. I have one without the encasing, and as you can see, it's actually 4 buttons soldered together in a custom PCB. And what this custom PCB essentially does, this is exactly the same as this, but with more buttons. It has the same function. There is one common pin, in this is labeled G for ground. And what this PCB does is connects one of the leads of each button. So one of the leads of all the buttons are connected to this pin ground here. And the other leg of each buttons are connected to 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's why we have 4 pins, right? So it's exactly the same. And this one, as I mentioned in previous videos, you can order these PCBs very cheaply and make life easier, but you can do something like this one here, which is a fully 3D printed, in this case it's a 2-position plus push button, because it has this part here. I have another one with only the 2 positions, so it goes left and right, and also push. Let me do it like this. So it has one side, 2 sides, and push, right? And the push is because it has this bottom part with another push button down there, right? So for this, you don't need, and we're going to be using for this project, I'm going to be using both of them, but you can actually use 3D printed ones like this. In the Thingiverse design, I've linked it to the part, and there's 4-way switches versions as well in there. So you could 3D print all of them and not have to build the PCB. I just had some of them, and they are very easy to work with. So that's why I used some of them. But we're going to be using 3 of them, which I already have mounted for the flight grip. Sorry, for the mission grip. These 3 will go there, and then this 4th one goes in the flight grip. And then there's 3 more that will also go in the flight grip. Let me show you which ones are they, but you probably already know. So this is the 4-position one. This is going to be this one, 4 positions. And these 3, then we have a 2-position here, board side and polarity. And then we have nose up, nose down, and return. So this is the up, down, and center. And this is the 2-position up and down, which is this one here, up and down. Okay. So yeah, I was saying that essentially this is exactly the same. If we were to draw this actually would be something similar to this one. Let me just draw this. So basically there's a common line, ground. Then we have 4 pins, 3, 4. So pin 1, pin 2, pin 3, and pin 4. And then in this case, we have, let me say, it's complicated. Let's just do something like this, not connected. So in when there's no action, there's a stock coming through like this. So it's not pushing anything. And then when you push one side or the other, then you push one of the pins. And with this design, you can actually push 2 sides at the same time. So you could be pushing pin 1 and pin 2 at the same time. Obviously, you cannot push up and down at the same time, but you can push the corners, and it's because with a 3D printed design, and well, it is like that. But since we are going to be using a pin expander, a port expander for the Arduino, instead of working on a matrix, and this is the one that we are going to be using. Hold on. It doesn't matter. If we click, I mean, it will matter in the game because we will be clicking two sides of the, like, for instance, if we take this is the FCR field of view. Obviously, you don't want to press, let's say, zoom and narrow at the same time, for instance. You can physically do it, but that's not something that you are expected to do. But it doesn't matter in terms of ghosting or anything like that, because we won't have that. Ghosting is essentially when using a matrix, if you don't properly place diodes where they need to be, when pressing 2 buttons at once, the matrix can get confused, or the processor can get confused and register presses of other buttons that you have not pushed. And we are going to prevent that and avoid that by using a port expander. And what is a port expander? As I mentioned, I think I mentioned this in previous videos, the Pro Micro has only 14 digital pins and then 4 additional analog pins. And that's not even close to what we need. We are going to actually need 2 of these boards and then some of the free pins that we are going to be left with in the Pro Micro. The good thing about these boards is that this is a PCF 8575, is that there are 16 pins that you can see, 16 inputs that you can plug in here. So basically 16 buttons, and only 4 wires come out of it. So you only need, you get, and 2 of them are actually ground and VCC. So you are only losing 2 pins in the Arduino and gaining 16. So you get 14 additional pins. And you can daisy chain them. So we will be using 2 of them. So we will be adding 32 pins by using only 2 digital pins in the Arduino. So hopefully we'll get to this in this video. I think, as I said, this is not an electronics tutorial, so just wanted to let you know, because if we are good, I think we may be able to start wiring, and I wanted you to understand what we were doing, what we were doing and why. Okay, so let's get started. As I mentioned, I've already built the 3 4-position switches for the mission grip. These ones will go inside here, and there's caps for them already, but we will leave that for another day. Just gluing the caps. So we will add these 3 4 switches, and actually the top will be done. We just need to wire it. But since I did this offline, let me do the 4th one so I can show you how it's built. So what I do usually is I would solder the leads for this one now before putting it inside the case. It's easier to work, and you don't risk melting the case if you do that. You do it that way. So let me just grab a piece of wire. It needs to be 5 wires, as I mentioned earlier. So just get a little bit of this, and I'll just be safe and cut. But we don't need a long one, because we are going to wire this to one of those expanders, and that's going to be inside the, it's going to be below this top, so it's not going to require very long wires. But let me just be safe, better safe than sorry, and carry it a little bit extra. Then this is a 5-wire ribbon cable, so I need to split it in half, just like that. And then let's strip the ends. I think I did actually I did several of these in the previous video. It's not gonna take very long. Bear with me. So what are you guys up to? My electronic, oh, you don't really mean that, Pugs. My electronics setup is sick. If you saw the whole table, it's a complete mess. Everything is just laying around on the table. So, yeah, sorry, I was off camera. I'm just stripping the ends of the wires. Whoa. And because I cut them, I split them apart very short, it's going to be a little bit challenging, just a little bit. And two more. Oh, I think I stripped one of them. I will put a little bit of. So when splitting them, I exposed the wire on this gray one. So I will put a little bit of thermal, how do you call them? The tubing, just to protect that exposed wire and avoid any shortcut. Sorry, shortcuts. Just twist the wire a little bit, that helps. And pretty the ends of the wire with a little bit of solder. And there's a big blob of solder here that we need to remove because the holes, as I mentioned in the previous video, the holes in here are very thin. Okay, just bear with me a second. I'm gonna put a little bit of heat shrink over that cable that I exposed the wire, which is this one. Whoops. Hello, the Apache Pit. How are you doing? Oh, thank you. Second one was not though. I accept my fault. Second one was we didn't advance much for how long it was, but I think I've learned from my mistakes, and hopefully we will be doing some more in today's video. We are just 38 minutes already. Okay, then let's get a little bit serious. So now I've pre-tinned the 5 wires here. I'm just gonna take this out and try to feed them through the holes, which it's usually easier said than done because these are very small holes. I can see jokes coming in. Oh, okay, good. It didn't fight me that much today. Okay, so I'm gonna hold PCB on one side and the wires on the other so they don't slip back. Let me see if I can put a little bit of pressure so they stay in place. And let me just put a little bit of flux in this PCB because, as I mentioned, the holes are very close together and flux will help avoid breaches. Sometimes you cannot help it and you just have to fight them, but a little bit of flux will probably help. So let's just do that. I don't think, well, actually I'll leave it here, the flux, in case we need it later. I usually, unless it's necessary, I don't like using flux too much. I mean, and anyone who knows a little bit of electronics will cringe at that statement. I mean, I follow an electronics YouTuber and he always says flux is your friend, and it is, but it's also a mess. It's very sticky and yeah, it's a little bit annoying. I think that's gonna be good. Sorry, let me just put the magnifying glass here so you can see what I'm doing. But basically I'm just making sure that there are no breaches, that there's plenty of solder, and there is. Yeah, I think we're good. I don't know if you can see it on screen, but I think we're good. So now I can remove this. I don't think we're gonna need the, oh, there's, look, a small piece of solder that fell into the, I don't know, you cannot see it. Come on. I cannot find it with the, there. That small piece of solder that fell into the bed. Out with it. Okay. Hold on a second. I'm gonna grab my isopropyl alcohol, 99%, I believe. Nobody else is doing your content, so regardless how well well, actually, there are a lot of DIY projects in YouTube. Maybe not in Twitch, that's true. But probably, I mean, the fact that people don't do it doesn't mean that it's good content. Probably, if people don't do it, it's for a reason, but I'm just too dumb not to make anything out of it. I mean, usually DIY takes quite some time, and that's why probably it's not the best content for a stream. It takes time and you don't advance very quickly, right? So that makes for good videos, especially if you edit them, unlike me, which I'm too lazy and actually don't to do that. So I just upload the full videos in YouTube, and everyone just skip forward the boring parts or the slow parts. The amount of time I burn my mouth holding the solder. Oh, really? Oh, don't do that, man. Just grab one of these, even if it's just as basic as this one. This is super basic one. I mean, I'm actually surprised that your soldering iron didn't come with one. I've burned my fingers a lot though. Flux the heck out of there. Sorry, I'm just reading your messages now. First time I ever used solder paste, I was shocked the value of. Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't like solder paste at all. Starting soon. Oh my god! Thank you, Ollie. Starting soon. I'm actually looking at it. I just ignored it. There. Okay. Let's keep going. So let me explain you something. As I said, I've linked in my Thingiverse page, which is in the description of the videos in YouTube, and I think in my it's in my Twitch profile as well. So I've linked the thing for this because I didn't design this one. This is the enclosure for this type of buttons, and I actually didn't design this either. So there's a link to the guy that designed this PCB and these four-way switches. So yes, I said I linked it. However, I do not like the stalk that he designed, and the stalk is this that's the push bar or whatever you want to call it. So I redesigned it. Just try it if you want, but the original one, I mean. But I just didn't like the feel of it, so I redesigned this piece, and you can download it in my Thingiverse. But these ones are the original ones, so these ones you will have to print from this guy's side. So what I do is first grab the top one, which is the one that has the grooves. I don't know, it's printed in black, but you can see it has the shape of the 4 buttons, and put them on top. And sometimes it can be a little bit challenging, but okay, this one was good. Perfect. Another thing that I did offline, by the way, yesterday, is I got some more screws, because in the last video I screwed this with only 12mm M2 bolts, and that was too short. I didn't trust they were going to hold. So I got myself some assortment of M2 screws. And they are also, I think they are meant for wood, but they also work for plastic. So they are not bolts, they are actually screws. Yeah, I've been on 40 minutes with the starting soon message. Well, doesn't matter. So yeah, I got them, and I used the 16 one, M2 by 16 one, to hold this together. And you see, this goes something like that. An M2 by 16 grabs much more of the plastic. So yeah, that's something I did offline with those ones. So yeah, let's just put and by the way, 2 of them are more than enough. This center one you will see now is to hold the stalk. So I just put 2 of them, and that's more than enough. M2 by 16. Remember. And then I have my iFixit not sponsored screwdriver. I love it. Sorry, not this head. This head. Let's go. And this being longer will help sandwich the two halves together better. Oh, hold on. Before doing that, sorry, I almost forgot to think. Before putting the bottom one, so if you decide to go with the original stalk, you can do it afterwards. So you just press it from the top and fit it in. But I designed this to be a little bit wider. So this is the base of the stalk, the bottom part, which goes inside here. And I decided to do it wider because the other one was a little bit narrower and allowed too much rotational movement, and I didn't like it, so that's why I did it wider. But the drawback for that is that you cannot put them afterwards. It won't fit with the buttons inside here, so you just need to put it first. This one is narrower, so that one fits perfectly. Just put it before adding the two halves together. Should you have waited a second to speak? I would have thought it easier to have the stalk captive between the two halves. Yeah. Yeah. Well, he's building a full cockpit, so he better be. By the way, let me just see if I can copy and do some shout out of the Apache Pit website, which is awesome. I have it in my favorites. That's why I got it so fast. So we have the two halves together now, and then you could leave it like that because the stalk is not going anywhere, and you can feel how. I mean, you can feel the buttons, the 4 buttons. Just test it. But I like to have another small screw in the center, which will hold the stalk. It has quite some movement upwards. It's not going to fall or anything, but it has quite a move. So I do recommend adding another screw. And I'm just going to use the old ones just because I want to finish them. And for this, they work just fine. Let me just put the nuts on its space. And for that, I just need a short one. It's an M2x6. You could use even a shorter one, but if you have an assortment, just use the M2x6. That works fine. So before I do it, before I screw it, I just noticed that because the hole here is very narrow and the M2 barely fits, it does fit, but very tightly. When you tighten it, then some of the buttons do not feel right. They just don't click properly. You have to feel the click, right? It does need to feel right. And the way I found that to go around that is basically doing this hole a little bit big. Don't make it too big so that the head of the screw goes through, because then what's the point? But just make it a little bit wider with an X-Acto knife, a little bit wider. And that makes, so the thing is that when you, this hole is so tight around the screw that it doesn't allow much movement from the stalk. So doing it a little bit wider does both functions. So basically the function of this screw is preventing the stalk from moving upwards, but it also does need to allow some movement, lateral movement, because the screw will move with the stalk, right? So you need to make it a little bit wider to allow movement, but not so wide that it goes through, because then it doesn't work. Change the head, because this one has a different head. And by the way, I'm not going to need this anymore. Sorry, can you hear me? For some reason, my headset turned off for a second. I don't know why it does that. It's a wireless headset, but it's fully charged, so I don't know why it turned off. Can you hear me? Okay, thanks. Have you thought about having a button on the bottom for a four-way? So yeah, that's a good question, Pax. This design doesn't have that option, but as I was mentioning before, if you 3D print this other design, and both are linked in my Thingiverse, this one actually has a push button here, so you can have. And we will be using both of them. So in this case, we have, it's exactly, the top part is exactly the same. This has two buttons at one button at each side. So this is a two-way switch. But if you add this bottom part with a button inside, and it just screws in, you have the side action plus the push button. And there is a four-way version of this one. So the guy that designed this did a really good job. It actually looks a little bit like this one. It's round, but it has, like, instead of a rectangle, it has a cross. So you can move this stalk, which is a different one. So there are these are two different designs. So you can move the stalk all the four ways and then also push. And this one in particular. So let me see if I can explain. So I don't know if you can see, but this one has a little bit of a leap, if you can see here. The four-way switches also has a leap. And the thing is that this one goes up here. So this one is the board side polarity one, right? So, and because of the shape of the 3D print of this design, and because the person who designed this probably had other switches in mind when he designed it, this actually doesn't fit properly, right? And even the four-way, which is round, also has a lip and doesn't fit. So I basically designed an enclosure. So this enclosure is also, this is specifically for this build, and it's also shared in the Thingiverse. But it uses the same system as the ones that the other guy did. I just modified the shape of it, but it uses the same stalk, the same format, and all that. And this one does fit properly here. So yeah. Would there be any merit in modifying the process to place the black round piece first to hold the switches prior to soldering? Process to place the black round piece first. Which one is the black round piece? You mean this one? Oh, okay. I think you mean this one, right? So let's say placing the buttons first, then well, actually, that's not a bad idea. Yeah, you could do that, I guess. Yeah, probably, because the soldering is going to be on top, so you could do that, probably. One thing I would do, though, is also place the stalk, so it holds the button and prevents them from going into the center of the. But I think it could be. I mean, the PCB is very well designed as long as you solder the buttons in the proper place. And if you don't solder them the first time, you can move them around a little bit just by keeping the solder liquid and move the buttons around a little bit. That will also allow you to move them. But yeah, that's an option. Yeah, absolutely. Let me just, something I didn't do because actually was not very necessary, but I want to trim a little bit the ends of the wires. They are very short. I did them short today, but it's always a good idea just in case. And let me check because I think, oh no, we're golden. We're good. I thought there was a bridge, but no. Okay, so I was explaining, this screw here screws inside which I didn't show, but the stalk has a small hole in the center, so the screw will bite into the stalk. see if I can find the hole. Just making it easier for you and the jokes. So one thing I had to do yesterday with the other three that I have mounted, and I didn't do it in this one. Sometimes that hole is a little bit too small. So what I'm gonna do is with the X-Acto knife, I'm gonna go through and trying to find the hole of the stalk inside. Let me see if you can see it. Let me just take out the magnifying glass. So basically what I'm gonna do is chamfer the hole a little bit. I'm trying to make not this hole wider, but the one of the stalk inside, because I cannot fit the screw. Let me see if I did it properly now. The Warthog project, he does have the ultimate DIY. Okay, come on. So you know what I'll do? Screw this screw. I'll just grab one of these. These ones are pointy, so it will make my life way easier. So yeah, just because I wanted to, finish with those, but let's just not be half an hour here fighting just because this one, yeah, that bit right away. So, okay. One thing you have to do, okay, this one, I think it's perfect, is you have to test, because if you, like this one actually is not perfect. I can feel that this direction is not, I mean, it is pushing, but it doesn't feel right. And this is what I meant before. You need to make sure and probably take in and out the screw several times until you find the proper placement and the proper size of the hole. Because if you don't do the hole big enough, you will find some of the positions don't click nicely. And don't tighten it too much, it needs to be loose. So up, down, I don't like it. You can actually leave it a little bit looser than you would think and leave a little bit of a gap, and that helps. Yeah, I think that's right. That's good enough. It doesn't feel perfect, but that could be the button as well. It does click, which is the important thing. So let's just leave it like that. Okay, so now time to get some things and shape some things actually, because now we are going to be adding these three that I previously mounted. So one thing you have to bear in mind is this small lip of the PCB. It won't fit in all the positions. So if you see here, there's a hole for this one. If you put it this way, the lip is it's against the wall. It's not properly getting in. So one thing you have to do is check in which direction. So for instance, in this direction is perfect. And then also bear in mind that there's only two holes in here. So if you use the 16 millimeter screws, they are barely, I mean, they are flush, but they are very close to the top. So if you get those two screws, so these are these two holes, in the same holes here, you won't be able to screw them. So you have to do these two opposite to these two in order to be able to screw them. And for this, I have some small black screws, like these ones here. And yeah, those are perfect for that. I already checked offline that the lip and the screws were in the proper positions for these three switches. So let's just do that. As you can see, my screws from the bottom at this moment are, so this has to go like this. So my screws are in this corner. So I have all the space that I need for these two holes. Okay, let's see what size of screw we use. I think I'm gonna be using, what about 2.3 by 5? That might be a little bit too short. No, I'm gonna be using these ones. 2.3 by 8. So I'm gonna need 6 of them. Let's just put them, take them out. So how's your project going, Apache? How's your cockpit? Okay, so I need to find the hole. Let me just put the screws first and then try to align it. With some complement mechanism. What kind of mechanisms are you missing or would you like to have? Sometimes it can be a little bit hard to, well, find the hole. AliExpress, yeah. I buy everything at AliExpress. I'm just patient. I just don't have, you know, if it takes 3 weeks, it takes 3 weeks. Doesn't matter. My next, well, not my next project, but one of my midterm or long-term project is to build a motion simulator, and that will probably take some time. Okay, so we have the first one in, and yeah, always feel nice. So next one, let me see this one. Where are the screws? So I need to put this like so. Perfect. Yeah, this one is good. Let me just fit the first millimeters through. Compliant. Okay. So what are you missing from the DIY switches box? What would you like to have that they don't? Which, by the way, there are some off-the-shelf switches. I don't have anyone here, but Alps, company Alps, does some off-the-shelf switches that are not very expensive, but they are. I mean, you have either the 4-way switches, but that one also has a rotary encoder included, and that's annoying because it makes the stalk to rotate. I'll show you later. And also they have an 8-way switch without the encoder, so the stalk is solid. Let's say it doesn't rotate, which is nice. And they both have a push function. But they don't do the 4-position switch without the encoder, which is annoying. And also another annoying thing about those switches is that when you push in any direction, up, down, left, or right, the push button is also switched. It's how they are designed. So the push button, whatever direction you push, it's always pushed. And when you push it, it only does that. Right, but yeah. So there's this, and the only perfect solutions, and I'm saying perfect because I think they are perfect, but I have not tried them, are military grade switches, HUD switches. But those are I have not seen them cheaper than $40 a piece, and some of them can reach up, go out up at to about 100 or something like that. It's crazy, but it's military grade. Okay, let me see. Am I getting the thread? I think I am, yes. Let me read the messages 1 second. Yes, I'm including a version GC in the station for VR flight immersion. Well, if they are comply. I don't know what compliant means. Sorry. Just, yeah, if you can share those links with me, I'll have a look at them. But as I was mentioning before, see, I think I'm going to be moving away from button matrices because these port expanders are so cheap and make life just much easier because it doesn't really matter. You're not going to have ghosting if you click 2 buttons at once. Yeah, of course, you might click 2 different options in game, but it's not a big deal. Okay, I think we're set with this hat. Okay, so before screwing this hat into the well, the grip, I think we're gonna wire it. That's a nice advancement. We're gonna end this video with this wired and screwed in. How about that? It's gonna be a little bit of a long video, but not as long as the first one, and it's gonna be a huge advancement. So I'm happy. So yeah, we're gonna wire it before because I think this one we're gonna stuck somewhere here. We're gonna hot glue it inside the case. So from here, there will only be 4 wires, well, a little bit more than 4 wires, and let me explain you why. So as I said, this has 18 inputs. We have 4, 8, 12, 13, 14 for the push action of the joystick. So there's 14 in the hat, and then we have the trigger, I think it's an alternative enter push button, and then the 2 positions here, and also the missile advance on the bottom. So that's more than 16. So what we will do is wire 16 of them. We said 14 here, I think, and then probably, I don't know, the trigger and this button, and leave the rocker switch and the button for the next board. So let's do that. Yeah, we will be wiring this one, which is the trigger, and also this one is, I'm gonna take the wire the other way around. This one here is this push button here. So yeah, let's do that. Well, the thing about shift registers, I was considering using them as well, and I actually have some that I have not used, is that yeah, they are smaller, but they are not that much smaller, and they are only 8 ports apiece, I believe. So yeah, let's start wiring. Before doing that, let me show you how this looks like, this board. Let me see if I can center a little bit. Okay, more or less, you can see. So let me grab something to point. Okay, so here we have all the pins that will go out to the Arduino. Well, actually out and in, because there's ground in the bottom, the bottom pin is ground. The second to the bottom is VCC, so that will be coming from the ground and 5 volts of the Arduino. And then we have SDA, which is the data cable, and SCL, which is the cable, the clock pin. The fifth one, we won't be using. We won't need it. And then at each side, there's 8 pins in each side, so a total of 16. And then we have one VDD and one ground in each side. So one VDD is because these boards work at 3.3 voltage, but we're not going to be using those, so it doesn't matter. And one ground. So that basically means that we have 2 grounds, which will be our 2 commons for the switches, what I explained earlier, right? So, for instance, let's turn this around. Let me put a little bit more light. We have 8 inputs here, right? This is a 4-way switch, 2 4-way switches, so 8 inputs. That is 10 wires, because one of them is the common, right? And that common is the one that is going to go to the ground, as we mentioned before. So what we will be doing is, I think you can solder header pins to this, but I think I'll just solder the wires together. So these 2 4-way switches will take one side of the expander, and then it does use I2C bugs. And then we will use the other side for this other 4-way switch, the joystick button, which is this one here, this small push button here, which is to select left or right screens in the MPDs. So that's 4, 6, 8. Wait, no, sorry. 4, 5, 6. One of each of the buttons is going to be a common. Sorry. And then we have the other 2 commons and other 2 inputs. So that makes a total of 8. So let's just do one side first, and we will do this one. And if you remember from previous video, the blue one is the common one. Let me just make sure, but yes, it is. So what I'll do is actually split it together fully. So where's my X-Acto knife? Split the blue one apart completely out. There. So this is the common for these 2 4-way switches. Let's strip them apart. And since I'm going to be twisting them together, because they both need to go to the same pin, I'm going to give it a healthy amount of exposed wire. Twist them together. And that will fit perfectly fine through the pinhole. So pre-tin them. Come on, there. Let me just cut the tip off, so it's because the tip is a little bit wider. There are some stranded wires, so it made the pre-tin wider. And let's just do it from the bottom. So I'm gonna do, as I said, these 2 will occupy one full row of one side of the expander. So from the bottom in the ground GND pin, I will solder this common. Let me see, I'll probably get this to help me. just hold the board and hold this. Perfect. That's good enough. And solder the two commons into the ground pin. Come on. There. Perfect. And then I can trim the excess. And then let's split apart a little bit the rest of the wires. So, and these are each one of the buttons in the switch. I mean, this is not going to be very serviceable if you soldered in. Obviously, you can. You would be perfectly fine by soldering pin headers and DuPont connectors or something like that to these wires. I'm just so sick of DuPont connectors. I don't expect to be opening this ever again. So I prefer just to solder. It is quicker. I can't be bothered with crimping. It's so annoying. And maybe we will crimp some things, but if I can avoid it, I will try not to crimp it. And again, as a DIY project, don't expect the finish of a professional product, of course. It works. That's what we look for with these projects. Hey Cami, how are you doing? We're building an Apache Collective, as you can see by the title. You can hear me right, can you? I hope if I get, I mean, I once got rated, but the alert didn't display for some reason. I do have alerts for raiders and things like that and followers. Okay, pretend. Where's the board here? And then, so these are the 4 wires of the first switch, and they are going to be soldered into the first 4 pins. So they are labeled in one side P0 to P7. In the other side, they are wired from P10 to P17. So it doesn't matter where you wire them, but in this case, actually, well, let me do something else before. Sorry. Let me turn this around and show you something on the back of this board. I mentioned before that this can be daisy chained, so we are going to be using 2 of them, but you can actually daisy chain up to 8 of them. And by daisy chain, I mean that you connect ground and VCC together, you connect all the SDA and all the clock pins of the different boards together. And let me just do something in the camera because I see it's not focusing. Let's see if that helps. It didn't focus. No, it made it worse. Come on. Just give me a second. It's clear that autofocus does not work. I need to manually focus. Let's see if that helps. A little bit. not much, honestly. Sorry about that. So it's a limit because each device that you use, each board that you use, you need to give it an address because they are all daisy chained together and going through the same, all the information is going through the same wire, and you need to give it an address. And they are designed to only have 8 different addresses. So I think it's a limit on the chip that they use. You can only give them 8 addresses. And actually, we didn't do that. To do that, on the bottom of this board, let me see if I can focus it a little bit. We have some pads. I don't know if you can properly see them. Let me move this around. There's too much light. Too much light. Hold on a second, sorry. There, oh, there. More or less. Just give me 1 second. There. So there are some pads, and as you can see, on top it says A2, A1, A0, and also ground and BDD. And the way you give this board one address or the other is by bridging those pads together. So either to ground, obviously not ground, and so there. I don't know if you can see in the video, but there are 3 pads in there. You either bridge the middle one with the top, which is ground, or the middle one with the bottom, which is BDD. Don't bridge the 3 together because you would be bridging BDD with ground, and that could damage the board. But so, for instance, we're gonna be doing that for this one. It's using so the address. We're gonna be bridging for this one. We're gonna be bridging the middle pad with all the top. Well, each one with all the top ones, which is going to be address 0 in hexadecimal. It's 0x20. Right, and that's going to be the address for this one. So let's do that. And then every variation of that combination is going to give you a different address. So if you do, hold on a second, I'm very focused. So it's not the prettiest job because I didn't use flux, and I don't want to. It's not needed, but it's okay. So if you do A1, A0, A1, A2 low, so low, 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 this would be considered low, low, low because we're bridging it to ground. Flux it, okay, just for you, and just the middle pin because the other ones are not too bad. If you do low, 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 that's gonna give you address 0x, there you are, 0x20. If you do, for instance, low, low, high, meaning that if I did instead of this A2 pin, if I did it middle to BDD, that would be 0x21, and so on and so forth. You can do, if you notice, with 3 pads, you can do 8 combinations, right? If I'm not wrong. And any combination of those will give you a different address. And glorious. It did make it very round and nice. So yeah, it was worth. But now I have to clean it. I hate that. You can see, for instance, the pins. I do not use flux for soldering the pins usually, because as I mentioned in my previous video, this solder has flux, has a core flux, or flux in the core, or whatever you want to call it, and it usually works well. The other two I didn't flux them and came out nice. So make sure I'm not 100% sure that I did not bridge the three pads together in the middle. Let me just have a look on the magnifying glass. But the safest way to do it, to make sure we don't damage this board, is actually checking for continuity. So let's just do that very quickly. I don't want to. I mean, one thing these boards have is that they are a little bit sensitive. I've damaged some of them already. So let me make sure I didn't bridge the three pins together. So, okay. Yeah, we're good. We're good. Perfect. Okay, so now we do have the first board, and that is address 20. So now we can solder the rest of the wires. So it doesn't matter where you solder them, but just for your reference, I'm doing pins. These are pins 14 to 17. Are they through? Yes, they are. Are they looking good? Kind of. Sparks? What do you mean? Just touch up a little bit. This one needs a little bit more solder. There. Yeah, that's good enough. Not the prettiest thing in the world, but again, it's just a DIY project. So let's strip the other 4 wires. Man, it's getting hot here. I live in Spain, in a town close to Barcelona, and it's what is it today? 16th of December. It should not be this hot and sunny. This is not normal. I'm just wearing a, you know, a t-shirt and a a hoodie, and I'm already considering taking the hoodie off. This must be the most boring stream ever. That's probably why people do not usually stream DIY projects. But hey, if anyone builds this and are happy and is happy with this, I'll be happy. Another sign of a DIY project is the use of lots of hot glue. We have not used that much hot glue yet, but we will, don't worry. Okay, let's pretend. What a blob of solder, I need to remove that. There. And then the next 4. Wait. There. There was another blob of solder preventing me from feeding the wires through. Okay. And I'm gonna touch up this purple one from before because it's a little bit too low. There. I think that's better. You have a UFC, Pugs? Do you have a cockpit too? Is it a DIY UFC? Okay, I'm gonna trim those a little bit. They are not too long, but still, I don't like them poking out. Yeah, that'll do. And then, so the next side is going to be a little bit more complicated because there's a bunch more wires that need to go to the common one. So we need to have one wire from this one. So let me strip this away from the rest. This is the common one for the third for switch. I'll check that out later. Yeah, I didn't remember. Nice. Apache UFC, you mean? Okay, we will do one of these. Let me strip out one of these. I will actually separate the whole wire. So this is the wire for the joystick push button. One of them will go to a pin. The other one is the common one. And we need this one as well. So I'm gonna split them apart too. It doesn't matter which one we use as common and which one we use. I mean, not for the push buttons. This wire, this is a cheap wire I got from AliExpress and it has like a protective film. Okay, so here we have 3 common wires, but we still need to add 2 more common wires, which are, so not this one, these 2 wires here. So we will have 5 commons going to one single pin. And what's the best way to do it? Because if we do the same that we did in the other side of the expander, we will end up with a too thick of a wire. So what I like to do is I'll grab one of the long ones, like this one, this purple one, for instance, is very long, and I will end up cutting a bunch of it. But for now, I'll get somewhere around this length, similar length than the previous one, something that allows me to move it around a little bit. And very carefully with the X-Acto knife, try to cut through the insulation, very, very carefully not to cut the strands inside. And I will split it apart as much as I can. So I don't know if you can see it on screen, but I'm already getting some wire exposed, and I want to leave a good amount exposed because there, a little bit more. What I'm gonna be doing is, let me show you. So for instance, let's grab this short one, which is the common for the 4-way switch, and then what's this? I don't know how you call them, but you know, turn it around the exposed wire. Let me. Sorry, my headset turned off again for some reason. Let me check how much battery do I have, because it was fully charged, so I don't know why it's turning off. It has 87% battery. So you explain me why it turns off by itself. You can hear me, right? Can you? I hope you can. Okay, so yeah, now I'll grab another common. Let's grab this one here, for instance. This is very long, so I'll science. I'll cut this shorter and be very aware. Let me just take the magnifying glass out. It's not making that much. It's a mess of wires, but bear in mind that I'm only taking one common for each button. So for now I have two of them, which is the long purple one coming from the button in the joystick. I've winded around the wire for the for this one here, for the four-way switches. Now I cut this shorter. The other one is still, available. And I'm going to be stripping and winding it around this one as well. So let's just do that. Is wind around the proper word? I don't know. Twist around? Twist around. Yeah, twist. I'm going to be twist. Oh, let me just do this first. And then twist it around the same area. And now we still need to do these other two wires. And this is going to be a little bit more complicated because we will be hanging everything together. But that's when helping hands come in handy. So I'm gonna split the two wires apart from both, from both of the buttons. So this one is this button here, and this one that I'll split apart now is the trigger. So let's do that now. And since both of them have the same color, I'll just grab one color, for instance, brown, and then, so both of them have a brown and a red wire. If I grab both grounds, I know I'm not using, both leads of the same button, which would be bad. So I'm grabbing one lead of each button, like that, and then rinse and repeat. Strip them, and then what I'll do is, since this is a 3D printed part, it doesn't weigh too much. I'll see if this can hold it. Looks like it can. And then twist it around what we have already done. So let me just twist them around themselves first. And then one at a time. And the other. Okay. And at this point, you can see, well, maybe you can't because it's a mess of wires, but there are five wires twisted around in this section of the wire, which in turn has the rest of the wire coming out of it. So what I'll do is basically solder this bunch of twisted wires together so they don't split apart, and basically to make the proper connection. So a good, nice, healthy blob of solder there. And now I will just put a little bit of heat shrink tube around it to protect it from touching other electronic components, which it would not be nice. So I will just put this piece of heat shrink up until where all the wires meet, and see if this one is thick enough. It is, but it has that, I think it will be. Just, I want it tight around it. I prefer to be, because otherwise if you use too thick of a heat shrink tube, it might slip. So yeah, a little bit of hot air. So it will grab especially strong in the part where there are more wires. You can see there. And now we're done with the commons. That's perfect because we have all the 8 buttons. So remember, we have 4, one common, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. We have the 8 buttons required. So I'm going to cut this a little bit shorter. We don't need that much. We actually need very little, so something like that. And remember, so all the commons end up in this single wire. So let's strip that. Pretin. And that's going to ground on the other side of the board. As I mentioned in the expander, there are 2 grounds, one at each side. So let me see if I can put this down a little bit and then grab another one of the arms. Let's just put it somehow like that. Yep, like that. And then, as I said, there's another ground in this side. So we will feed this through and solder. Oops, hold on. There's a little bit of solder in the tip of my on the tip of my iron. And there we have all the grounds, all the commons connected to ground. Professional, really? This is the least professional thing you could think of. I mean, it's anyway, but it works, which is it's what matters. So now what we are left with are the input leads, which are all these. So we have 4 here, other 2, 6, and then the red wires for the other 2 buttons, 8. And we are going now to solder all these into the board. So let me just strip these ones a little bit apart. My wiring looks professional. Oh my god. Oh my god. You know what about this project? What's the most difficult thing is to fit all these wires inside the enclosures. That's why I ended up doing it like this, because this will distribute a little bit all the wires in the different parts of the collective. But for the one I'm using, I had to stack. I didn't use expansion boards. I did it differently, but it still has a lot of wires and still has the Arduino. And I ended up fitting everything in this case. And believe me, it seems big, but it's not. It's not big at all. Definitely, I mean, if you were to open my collective now, it would probably explode while opening it for the pressure of the wires that are fit together. So we will try to do that a little bit easier on this one so they don't support as much pressure. Okay. Twist them around. Try to avoid wild strands, and then pretin. And since you have been here with me for so long, and I really appreciate that, I'm gonna give you a little bit of a breaking news. I'm already working on an MPD's design, and like actually, hold on, I missed one of them, and I think they are gonna look sick. I'm still in the design phase, so I have not printed anything yet, but I'm designing the PCB and all that. It's a beautiful rat's nest. Indeed it is. Yes, it is a rat nest. Absolutely. Hold on, let me see if I take them all together at once, it might be easier to feed them through. And again, I'm feeding them through the pin holes. Obviously, the only one we are not going to be using for this project is the BDD, which supplies 3.3 volts in these boards, because as I mentioned, we are going for an input pull-up option, which means that all the pins will be on high by default. And when you press a button, for these boards, it's better to do that because they cannot handle pull-ups very well. So it's better to pull them up by default. And then when you press the button, that will connect them to ground and that will pull them down. Okay, that's the four-way switch soldered in. Then let's grab this one, for instance, which is the joystick. Got it a little bit shorter. And the reason it was a very long wire is because my initial intention was to build one like mine, which has a matrix of buttons. It doesn't have these boards. And all the wires were going to be fed through this to this grip to the middle section where the matrix would be located. Since I changed my mind and I decided to use port expanders, we don't need them as long, obviously, because this port is going to be stuck in there. There. And then this one, let's also cut. I've got my MPDs modeled and have got several of the layers in acrylic. Same for the TDEC screen. My MFDs are also slightly larger than one because of the screens I use. Actually, I got one of those screens. The ones that you recommended, I have it around here. Well, actually, never mind. But I did get one of the screens that you recommended in your site. I think it's a 9-inch. What is it? 9-inch 2K screen, right? If I recall correctly. And those are actually, at least the one that I found, I don't know if it's exactly the same, but the one that I found is 16:9 screen, which means that it's not as high as it should be. So I believe the screen size of the MPDs is about 150 something millimeters, 56, I want to say, or something like that. And that screen that you recommended in your site only gave me a height of 140 something. Physical MPD would be a massive step up, especially with things like slaving. Yeah, it was short on one way and longer on the other, correct. So I'm designing mine using a screen that it's not as high resolution. It's not 2K. The one that I ordered, I think it's HD, not even full HD, but it's a 10 inch 4:3 screen, and it's also cheaper. And that gives me the full 1:1 scale of the MPD. So that's going to be massive. The TDAC I built, let me show you the TDAC. Let me just take this out a little bit. This TDAC, I have massive hands because I'm almost 6'4", and this is an 8-inch screen, same resolution, HD, so 768 or something like that. So I can imagine a 10-inch screen is going to be massive. And I will probably redesign the TDAC to, I mean, since I already have the 2K screen, I will probably redesign my TDAC to fit that screen. So at least I can have a 2K TDAC image. That would be awesome. You love the fingerprints. Yeah, it's not a tactile screen though. It's just that I don't know, just like that. Okay, there's only 2 more buttons to wire, which are the ones in the grip. So let's do that. If you're watching this on YouTube, you might be thinking, what's this guy rambling about? Yeah. Just bear in mind that this is a Twitch stream, and I'm going to be uploading it to YouTube unedited because I'm lazy. So that's why. Just feel free to skip forward. Yeah, well, I went the other way, but you're right. The thing is that it's not easy to find 4:3. I mean, it should not even be 4:3. The screen of both the TDAC and the MPDs should actually be 1:1 ratio, but those are probably specifically built for that purpose. But even 4:3, which should be probably a little bit easier to find, they are actually not really easy to find. And another solution is just to build the front plate without TV and just put a TV behind, and that's perfectly fine. Like you could do that with the Total Controls MPDs, for instance, and I'm sure many people do that. I just wanted to make it one piece, and the way I'm gonna design them, you will probably still be able to do that if you just print the front plate and the PCBs, and then just don't mount. So I'm stripping the ends of it because they are a little bit too long, but they are all soldered in. Hold on, I see this one fell down a little bit there. But yeah, you could probably print just the front plate and get the PCB that I will design. I'm already designing it, but I need to work on it a little bit more. And just maybe double tape it to a screen or something like that, and it would be easier and cheaper even, maybe. Well, I mean, the screen that I'm using, I think it's about 60 euros or something like that. You'll need 2 of them, obviously. But yeah, for that price, you can get a cheap monitor or something like that, and would do the same work. The other thing I was thinking of for the MPD, rather than making a square unit with a massive cutout, I was to make either 2 L-shaped pieces. Oh, okay. Okay, so instead of making, okay, I see what you mean. And why would you do that? Is your 3D printer bed size small? because the way I designed mine, it's going to be 1-to-1, and it fits barely, but it does fit in my Ender 3, and it's not, I mean, it's an Ender 3. It's not a super huge printer. Okay, so now we have all the buttons wired together. The only thing that's left to wire is the cables coming out of the board, obviously. These ones are the ones that are going to be connected to the Arduino. But let me see, because let me change this. There's something else that we need to wire in here, and that is so as I mentioned before, we have ground and 5 volts coming into the board. There's something else in here that requires 5 volts and ground, and that is the joystick. The joystick requires 5 volts. So what I'm going to do, instead of having this long wire which contains both the signal inputs of the joystick and ground and VCC, I'm going to actually split ground and VCC out of it. So in this case, the ribbon cable is yellow, orange, red, brown. The yellow and orange are the signal wires, so I'm going to split them apart. And the red and brown are VCC and ground. And as I mentioned, I don't know if it was in the first video, or I think it was in the first video. For a potentiometer, it doesn't really matter which one is ground and which one is VCC. So I'm probably going to be wiring them like red to VCC and brown to ground, because that's kind of a standard. But it wouldn't really matter. So as long as they are the outer pins of the potentiometer. So as you can see, probably you can, I don't know if you can actually, but red is coming from the furthest, from the top, orange is coming from the middle, and brown is coming from below. And it's the same in this case. Well, actually this is yellow, but this is soldered in together with the red one. So actually, let me see what I did. Yeah, exactly. So I had some leftover cable. In this case, it's yellow and green, but the yellow is soldered with the red and the green is soldered with the brown, so it doesn't matter. The point is that the two signal wires are the ones coming from the middle pin, which are these yellow and these orange wires. Hi, Tortuga do. Tortuga who? What Arduino are you using for this project? I'm using an Arduino Pro Micro. This is the board that I'm going to be using, because this is detected by the computer as a gaming device without having to do anything with it. Just plug it in, and Windows detects it as a gaming device. Also, bear in mind that this is a Chinese knockoff, and this one has a micro USB port. But these knockoffs, they do with different ports, and they do them in USB-C as well. And I think the next ones I have to buy, I still have some others like this one laying around. But if I have to buy more, I will buy them USB-C. That's much more, that's a better connection. So yeah, Arduino Pro Micro with a PCF 8575 port expander, actually 2 of them. Exactly. That, yeah. Okay, so I was saying that we are going to be, let me just hold this a little bit down. We're going to be soldering the PCF, which requires ground, VCC, SDA, and SCL. But since we have to get 2 wires for ground and VCC out of this, and to avoid having, we're going to try to get as the least amount of cables coming out of the mission grip, so we can actually save the the 2 wires for ground and VCC for the joystick, because we can actually connect them already here. They don't need too much current, so we can connect it together. Since everything is going to be then afterwards connected to the Arduino, we don't need to have this long. So I'm gonna be doing that. And what wire am I going to use? I had a piece of wire laying around here that I can use, because it doesn't need to be very long, since the wires coming out of here are going to end up in the flight grip, and we're going to daisy chain them there with the other port expander, because as I mentioned, we're going to need 2 of these. So where did I put the wire? Oh, it fell off. So this is a piece of wire that I think it's going to be probably enough. So if we go through like that, actually no, I'm going to cut it longer. Yeah. So let's do something like that. And what I mean is that we're going to be putting this board somewhere inside here. So these wires are coming from here. And I just need a little bit of wire to connect them in this space here, which is the, the fly grip. So yeah, I think that should be enough. We only need 4 of them. So let me just cut this, and we'll be getting brown, red, orange, and white. Sorry, and yellow. So yeah, that's gonna be our color, and it's perfect because usually brown is ground, red is power, and they are in the same order. Usually yellow and orange are also could be used as signal inputs, which is what we will be using them for. So it's nice. Welcome to the channel, by the way. Thank you. Thank you for being with us. Okay, let's see. This is a lifesaver. If you don't have one of these or something similar, get one. I used to strip these wires with an X-Acto knife, and it was a nightmare. This makes life so much easier. And these are cheap. I think I bought this on AliExpress as well. So, and they work just fine. Actually, I'm cutting this short. I'm gonna cut them a little bit longer. Actually, not this one. Only ground and VCC a little bit longer, because I'm gonna be twisting the joysticks together with this. So, okay. So let me see. Before soldering it to the board, let's just twist the joystick wires, ground and VCC wires with this. So it's this here. I'm gonna be cutting it shorter, like so. Splitting them apart a little bit. And just because I have a little bit of OCD, I'm gonna twist the red around the red and the brown around the brown. But as I mentioned, it doesn't matter. So red with red. And brown with brown. Come on, there. And I did it longer on purpose, so I could twist them properly and then solder them properly. It holds. So let's pre-tin those first. I hope you can see what I'm doing because I'm a little bit out of camera. Okay, and then let's put in the other two. And the good thing about this ribbon cable is that I don't need to remember which one is which. So since they are together, they are, it's a ribbon cable. I know that if I solder this like that, like ground and red are always brown. So brown and red are always ground and power. Then I know the order is orange is going to be SDA and yellow is going to be SCL. So yeah, that helps. So let's just feed these longer ones through first. There. And I know it's out of focus, I'm sorry about that. I don't know how to focus this camera. There. And strip the ends. And guys, after this, we will be ready to put it in place and screw it. We will be closing the flight grip. So 2 more wires. Sorry, the mission grip. I always get it backwards. What about that other chip you are using? I know it just named it, but I didn't hear it. What did you say it was called? Yeah, let me just finish those 2 wires and I will put it in the chat. But it's a PCF 8575. It's a port expander. So basically, I can have 16 inputs plugged into this board, and then the board plugged into the Arduino with only 4 wires, and I get 6 inputs out of 4 wires. It's connected via I2C, how's it called, communication method. Okay, so let me just write in the chat the name of the board. And as I was explaining before you joined, you can daisy chain them together, up to 8 of them, so you can have a really big gaming device. So in this project, we are actually going to daisy chain 2 of them together only, but you could actually do 8 of them. Okay, we're done, at least with soldering, and at least with, today. But yeah, I think we can fit everything through already. And let me see, we might not even have to do anything. So these ones need to go through here. And there's a separator here, so the wires do not get in the way of the trigger. So feed them through that space over there. So let's feed them through. Yeah, you could do that as well. I just like this better, and they are very inexpensive. So for me, they are easy to work with, easier, but it's just because I haven't explored the shift register option too much. So now one thing that we have to take care of is the spring, which is glued this end, but needs to fit in that space there. So maybe, let me see, how can we do this best in order for all the wires not to be in the middle. And maybe we do have to glue this somehow, because I need these wires to come on the front, like so. Let me see how we do it. Maybe we can fit those down a little bit so they are not in the way. And as I said, this is the most difficult part of this build, figuring out how to place all the electronics and all the wires and all that without, you know, it being so cramped that it wants to explode or being in the way. I don't think it's gonna matter much. So there are a couple of wires in the way, but it won't. I don't think it will impact the action of the spring. So if we close it like that and hold it, it has a nice feel. So I think I'm just gonna leave it like that. Yeah, let's just leave it like that. And so here we have all the wires coming out. We have this button here. We have the rocker switch, the 4 wire, how you call them? Ribbon cable is the port expander, and then the 2 yellow and orange is the 2 different signal pins for the joystick. Is there more and more latency with every? I don't know, but the first collective that I built, I actually used 3 boards, 3 expanders, and I didn't notice anything. So, you know, microcontroller, I usually ask myself that question a lot, because, I mean, I tend to ignore the fact that a microcontroller works at a frequency that a human can barely even think about it sometimes. And you just need to think that these things are small computers and they are super quick. So you wouldn't notice anything, especially for the use that you will give a device like this. You're not going to be like clicking dozens of buttons in milliseconds. You're going to just do one click every once in a while and all that. So the most use you're going to do this, I mean, what you're going to use the most in this is actually the potentiometer to the actual collective. So yeah. So I have an assortment of screws here, and we're going to be using, actually, I think I need other screws, because I have only up to 20 millimeter screws here, M3 by 20. And somewhere I have longer, 25 M3 by 25. And those are actually going to be better. So let me see if I can find them in the mess that it's my table, which I don't think they are in here. So just give me a second, bear with me. Where did I put them? So yeah, that's the problem of having a desk that it's a little bit of a mess. Well, I'll end the stream here. I've had issues with lag on my UFC, but only when adjusting the brightness. And as soon as I unplug it back in, works fine again. So I might have memory leak or something. I couldn't tell, mate. I don't know. Yeah, as I was saying, M3 by 20 millimeters are just enough for this, but I don't want to use them. So I'm gonna end the stream. The only thing that was left for me to do anyway was to do these 3 screws here, but you can see how it's gonna look like. And we have hats for this. I just have not printed them yet, but I have hats for this, so we will be gluing those in a later video. That's nothing especially interesting. But yeah, I'm gonna end this video without screwing them, because I'm gonna offline search for those screws that I have. Again, M3 by 25 is the perfect size. And screw it together offline. Next video, we will be working on the flight grip already. So I hope to see you there. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Pugs. Thank you, Apache, Pete. Thank you to everyone who's joined for the first time. Oh, thank you, Tortuga, for following. That's a good test to confirm that it works, because I wasn't sure that the alerts were going to work. So thank you everyone for joining. Again, all my videos. By the way, Tortuga, if you probably won't know, but I'm uploading all the streams in YouTube. So if you want to check the previous parts and see how we came to this point, feel free to go there and check. Bear in mind that I don't edit. I'm lazy. I just upload them as they are. So feel free to set a high speed or skip back and forward to the parts that you're interested in. So yeah, I'm just lazy. I don't expect to be a YouTuber and to make a living out of this. I just want to share the very little knowledge I have with the community. So I don't bother getting it pretty or, so yeah. Okay, so thank you again, everyone, and see you in the next one. Have a good day. Have a good weekend. Bye.